Hey Reddit, it's Jake here. I never imagined I'd find myself pouring out my heart on this forum, but sometimes life leaves you with scars so deep you have no choice but to share your truth. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, where everyone knew your name, and where trust was the currency of every friendship. I always believed that honesty and loyalty were the foundations of any strong relationship. I was raised on stories of heroes who faced adversity with unwavering resolve, and I thought I had that same kind of inner strength. But nothing could have prepared me for the betrayal I experienced from those I held closest. It all started in the summer of my junior year in college. I had moved to a bustling city on the East Coast to chase a dream that promised endless opportunities and the chance to redefine who I was. I was filled with excitement and a hunger to explore the unknown. And that's when I met Michael. Michael was charismatic, confident, and had a way of making everyone feel like they were the center of his universe. He quickly became my best friend, and together we navigated the ups and downs of college life. We spent long nights studying in cramped dorm rooms, shared laughter over cheap pizza in the glow of neon signs, and forged a bond that I believed would last a lifetime. But the foundation of that bond began to crumble when Ashley entered our lives. Ashley was everything I wasn't: vibrant, spontaneous, and unapologetically free-spirited. I was immediately drawn to her, and before long, Michael and I both found ourselves captivated by her charm. At first, it seemed like the three of us could build something extraordinary, a friendship that blended the best parts of loyalty, passion, and shared dreams. We planned road trips, late-night drives along empty highways, and whispered secrets under starlit skies. I thought that this was what it meant to truly live. I soon discovered that the connection I felt with Ashley was deeper than any friendship I'd ever known. I let myself hope that maybe, just maybe, she might see me as more than just a friend. The vulnerability in me was raw and palpable, and I confided in Michael about my feelings. I trusted him with everything I had, believing that he would support my pursuit of love without letting jealousy creep into our bond. I was wrong. There were subtle hints at first. A lingering glance that held too much meaning between Michael and Ashley, a shared smile when I wasn't around, or a silence that fell like a curtain whenever I tried to join their conversation. I brushed them off as coincidences, as if my mind was playing tricks on me in the haze of late-night confessions and restless dreams. But as the days turned into weeks, the air around us thickened with unspoken secrets, and the strain became impossible to ignore. I remember one crisp autumn evening when the truth finally exploded into my reality. I had returned to our shared apartment unexpectedly from a late study session. The door creaked open, and there they were, Michael and Ashley, locked in an embrace that spoke of promises and hidden desires. In that moment, the world tilted on its axis. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would shatter, and the weight of betrayal crushed me. I felt like I had been punched in the gut, my trust torn asunder by the very people I thought I knew best. Everything that followed was a blur of confusion, anger, and heartbreak. I spent nights in a daze, replaying every memory, every laugh, every tear that we had shared, desperately trying to find a reason for their actions. How could the two people I loved betray me in such a callous, calculated way? The betrayal wasn't just about the physical act. It was the shattering of everything I believed in. The honesty, the loyalty, the sacredness of friendship. I felt abandoned in a world that suddenly seemed cold and uncaring. For weeks, I isolated myself from everyone. I stopped answering messages and avoided any gathering that might remind me of happier times. My friends tried to reach out, but their words rang hollow against the overwhelming silence of my thoughts. Every quiet moment was filled with the echoes of Michael's laughter and Ashley's soft whispers. A constant reminder that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. I began questioning everything about myself, my judgment, my worth, and whether I was even capable of love anymore. In the midst of my despair, I turned to the one outlet that had always provided solace: writing. Late at night, with only the hum of my computer as a companion, I began to type. The words flowed out in a torrent of raw emotion, each sentence a desperate attempt to understand the inexplicable hurt I was experiencing. I wrote about the betrayal, about the nights I spent staring blankly at the ceiling, about the quiet moments when I felt utterly alone despite being surrounded by people who cared. The keyboard became my confessional, and with every keystroke, I hoped to find a piece of myself that had been lost. I couldn't help but wonder if there was any way to heal the wounds that now marred my soul. I searched for answers in the pages of countless books and the quiet musings of my mentors, but nothing could fill the void left by the betrayal. I questioned whether I had been too trusting, too vulnerable, if my heart had been an open invitation for pain. And yet, in the midst of all this agony, a small ember of hope flickered. I began to realize that perhaps this was not the end of my story, but rather the beginning of a journey toward rediscovery. In the silence of that long, lonely night, I made a decision. I would not allow this betrayal to define me. I would reclaim my narrative, piece by piece, word by word. I started reaching out to old friends and even sought professional help, determined to understand and overcome the hurt. Slowly, I began to see that the person who had been so shattered by betrayal was still capable of growth, of learning, and of loving again. Even though the betrayal had cut deep, I knew that I had the strength to rise from the ashes. As I sit here now, tapping out my story to all of you on Reddit, I realize that I'm still in the process of healing. The scars remain as a testament to the pain I endured, but they no longer define who I am. I'm beginning to see that betrayal, as devastating as it is, can also be a catalyst for transformation. It forces you to look within and question everything you once held sacred. And in that introspection, you find the resilience to move forward, even when the path ahead is shrouded in darkness. I'm sharing this with you, not for pity, but in the hope that someone else who has been hurt can find a glimmer of understanding and strength. The road to healing is long and fraught with setbacks, but every step forward is a victory in itself. If my story can offer even a small measure of solace or encouragement to someone grappling with betrayal and heartbreak, then it has served a purpose. Even as I write these words, the memories of that painful night still sting like fresh wounds. But I've come to understand that pain, as excruciating as it is part of the human experience. It molds us, shapes us, and sometimes even propels us toward growth in ways we never thought possible. I'm not sure what the future holds, if I'll ever fully forgive Michael or Ashley, or if the betrayal will forever cast a shadow over my relationships. All I know is that I'm determined to continue my journey, no matter how rocky the road may be. The process of healing is neither linear nor predictable. There are days when I wake up feeling like I've made significant progress, only to be hit by a wave of nostalgia for the person I used to be, trusting, open-hearted, and unafraid of vulnerability. And then there are days when the memories overwhelm me, and I find myself questioning every choice I ever made. But through it all, I remind myself that every tear shed, every sleepless night, and every moment of despair is part of a larger tapestry, a tapestry that, in time, might just reveal a masterpiece of resilience and hope. I've started writing again, not just to vent, but to create. I'm exploring new passions, from painting to hiking in the crisp autumn air, and even reconnecting with family members who I had distanced myself from in the aftermath of the betrayal. Slowly but surely, I'm learning to trust again, not blindly, but cautiously, and with newfound wisdom. The journey is painful, but each step, no matter how small, is a step from the darkness that once threatened to consume me. There are nights when I find myself staring out at the city lights, wondering about the paths not taken, and the lives that might have been. I think about Michael and Ashley, about the choices that led us all down these divergent roads. I wonder if they ever reflect on the damage they caused, if they feel the weight of their actions as deeply as I do. And in those moments, I find myself grappling with a strange mixture of sorrow and pity. The betrayal wasn't just an act of infidelity. It was the unraveling of a friendship, the destruction of trust, and the shattering of dreams we once believed were unbreakable. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when I started to let go of the bitterness. Perhaps it was when I saw a reflection of myself in the mirror, scarred, yes, but still standing. Or maybe it was when I realized that the pain, as overwhelming as it was, had taught me lessons I'd never learn otherwise. I learned that trust is fragile, and that vulnerability, while beautiful, comes with its own set of risks. I learned that sometimes the people you love can hurt you the most, and that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about freeing yourself from the chains of resentment. In the quiet moments of self-reflection, I began to write down every detail of my journey. The moments of despair, the fleeting instances of hope, the laughter that managed to break through the gloom, even if just for a moment. I found solace in the act of creation, and in doing so, I started to reclaim the pieces of myself that had been lost. Each word was a step toward healing, each sentence a small victory over the darkness that had once seemed insurmountable. I won't lie, there were times when I wanted to shut out the world completely. I considered abandoning my dreams, retreating into a shell where betrayal could no longer hurt me. But the fire that once burned so brightly within me, the passion for life, the yearning for connection, refused to be extinguished. It was in those moments of doubt that I clung to the memories of who I once was, and I made a promise to myself that I would not let betrayal rob me of the chance to love again, to live fully, and to create a future that was distinctly my own. Looking back now, I can see that the betrayal shattered me, but it also laid bare the strength I never knew I possessed. I've learned that while the scars may never fully fade, they are also a testament to survival, to the relentless pursuit of self-healing in the face of overwhelming adversity. Every step forward, no matter how hesitant or fraught with doubt, has been a victory against the dark forces of despair. As I continue to piece together my life, I remain committed to the idea that even the most painful experiences can serve as catalysts for growth. I've begun to see that my story isn't one of defeat, but of rebirth. The lessons I've learned about trust, vulnerability, and the resilience of the human spirit are now the pillars upon which I'm rebuilding my identity. I want to share this not to wallow in self-pity, but to remind anyone out there who's experienced betrayal that healing is possible. Every heartache is a chapter in the story of life. And while some chapters are darker than others, they all contribute to the person you ultimately become. I'm still navigating the complexities of forgiveness, both for others and for myself. Forgiveness doesn't come easy, it's a slow, sometimes agonizing process, but I've come to understand that holding on to the pain only serves to anchor me in a past I cannot change. So I'm learning to forgive, not because I'm excusing their actions, but because I deserve the freedom to move on without the heavy burden of resentment. And in that act of forgiveness, I find a glimmer of peace, a hint that maybe, just maybe, the future holds brighter days. Even now, as I share these raw emotions and fragmented memories with all of you, I can't help but feel that there's a deeper purpose to all of this suffering. The betrayal was a betrayal not only of trust, but of the self that believed in loyalty, the self that dreamed of love without boundaries. And yet, through the tears and the heartache, I've discovered that the essence of who I am is far more resilient than any act of betrayal. My spirit endures, and with each new day, I strive to rebuild a life that is richer, deeper, and more authentic than ever before. There's an old saying that time heals all wounds, but what I've come to realize is that time doesn't erase the pain, it transforms it. The raw ache of betrayal softens into a bittersweet reminder of lessons learned and strength gained. I'm still a work in progress, and I know there will be setbacks, days when the betrayal feels as fresh and devastating as ever. But I've learned to accept these moments as part of the journey, knowing that each tear and each moment of despair is slowly giving way to hope and self-discovery. I write all of this to remind myself and anyone who might be listening that even in the midst of profound betrayal, there exists an opportunity for renewal. I am determined to honor my past without being enslaved by it. I'm forging a future defined not by the actions of those who betrayed me, but by the courage to love, to trust again, and to believe in the transformative power of resilience. In the weeks and months that followed that shattering night, I embarked on a journey of self-discovery and healing that neither I nor anyone around me had ever anticipated. The initial days were a haze of numbness, where the pain was so raw it almost seemed surreal, like a cruel dream that refused to end. I began to venture out into the world again, not with the reckless abandon of my younger self, but with a cautious determination to find meaning in every experience. I started by frequenting a small, quirky coffee shop downtown, where the aroma of roasted beans and the soft murmur of conversations offered a quiet reprieve from the tumult of my thoughts. There, amidst the clatter of cups and whispered secrets, I met people who, like me, had scars hidden beneath smiles. These encounters, seemingly trivial at first, gradually rekindled a spark within me that I thought had long been extinguished. I found solace in the gentle routines of everyday life. A morning jog through dew-laden parks, evenings spent sketching the city's skyline, and weekend hikes that allowed me to lose myself in nature's embrace. It was during one of these hikes that I met Sarah, a kind soul whose eyes reflected a depth of understanding that resonated with my own battles. Sarah wasn't just a passing acquaintance. She became a quiet force in my recovery, offering empathy without judgment. Our conversations, ranging from our shared love of classic rock to long debates about the best American diners, reminded me that trust, though fragile, could be nurtured again through genuine connection. Yet, even as I slowly began to piece my life back together, there were moments when the memories of Michael and Ashley would surge unbidden, darkening the horizon of my newfound hope. In the solitude of night, when the world was wrapped in silence, the betrayal would echo like a haunting refrain. I'd lie awake, grappling with questions that had no easy answers. Was I too naive? Had I worn my heart on my sleeve, inviting inevitable pain? These introspective battles were as relentless as they were necessary, teaching me that healing wasn't a straight line, but a labyrinth of setbacks and small victories. My work as a freelance graphic designer, which I had nearly abandoned in the aftermath of the betrayal, gradually became a lifeline. Each project I took on was more than just a job. It was an exercise in reclaiming a piece of myself that had been overshadowed by despair. I poured my emotions into every design, transforming heartbreak into art. The creative process was cathartic, a silent rebellion against the darkness that once threatened to engulf me. Clients began to notice the raw authenticity in my work, and soon enough, my designs started to gain attention on social media and local exhibitions. It was as if each piece of art I completed was a step forward, a declaration that despite the hurt, I was still capable of beauty and connection. Still, there were times when the betrayal's lingering shadow would seep into my professional life. A sudden flash of a memory during a crucial presentation, or an inexplicable moment of self-doubt before launching a new project would send me spiraling back into old habits of overthinking and insecurity. It was during one of these low moments that I attended a local seminar on personal resilience. The speaker, a soft-spoken yet remarkably articulate woman named Rebecca, shared her own story of loss and redemption. Her words were a balm to my wounded spirit, a reminder that our scars are not signs of weakness, but emblems of our ability to endure and overcome. I left that seminar not only with a renewed sense of purpose, but with a determination to integrate these lessons into every facet of my life. As the seasons changed, so too did my perspective. I began to see that while betrayal had indeed left an indelible mark on my soul, it had also ignited a metamorphosis within me. I started to embrace vulnerability as a strength rather than a liability. Each conversation with a friend, every moment of shared laughter, and even the quiet instances of self-reflection were no longer viewed as reminders of past pain, but as affirmations of my resilience. I made a conscious effort to celebrate the small victories, a day without lingering sorrow, a successful creative project, or even a genuine smile in the mirror. These moments, though fleeting, were powerful indicators that I was slowly reclaiming my life. The process of rebuilding wasn't without its setbacks. There were times when I relapsed into old patterns of isolation, retreating behind the safety of familiar sorrow. I remember one particularly bitter winter when the cold seemed to seep into my bones, mirroring the chill that had taken root in my heart. That season, I lost touch with many of the friends I had painstakingly rebuilt bridges with, and the loneliness felt overwhelming. Yet, even in that isolation, I discovered an inner strength I hadn't known existed, a quiet resilience that kept me going, even when the nights were the darkest. One evening, as I sat in my dimly lit apartment surrounded by sketches and unfinished designs, I realized that I had reached a turning point. I was no longer defined by the betrayal, nor was I shackled by the pain it had inflicted. Instead, I was evolving into a version of myself that embraced both the light and the shadow. I began documenting this evolution in a journal, not just as a record of my healing, but as a testament to the transformative power of human fragility. Each entry was raw and unfiltered, a chronicle of battles fought and small victories won against the odds. This journal became a confidant, a silent witness to the tumultuous journey of reconciling love, loss, and self-worth. I poured into its pages not only my sorrow and anger, but also the moments of unexpected beauty. The time I rescued a stray dog on a rainy day, or the evening I spent dancing in the rain with Sarah, laughing as if the world were anew. These memories were interwoven with the pain, creating a tapestry of emotion that was as complex as it was beautiful. In time, I began to see that the betrayal had served as a harsh, unyielding teacher. It had forced me to confront the duality of human nature, the capacity to both love deeply and hurt profoundly. I learned that forgiveness, while not an absolution of the past, was a gift I gave myself to move forward unburdened. I reached out to Michael, not to rekindle what once was, but to understand the cracks in the foundation that led to our downfall. Our conversation was filled with long pauses, bitter admissions, and the kind of regret that can only come from a profound realization of lost time. It wasn't a reconciliation, but rather a mutual acknowledgement of mistakes, a silent farewell to the innocence we once shared. As months turned into years, the relentless pain of betrayal gradually faded into a background hum, a reminder of a chapter that was both painful and pivotal. I learned to balance the delicate scales of trust and caution, embracing relationships with a newfound sense of wisdom. My art evolved too, reflecting the layers of my experience with intricate detail and a raw, emotional honesty that resonated with others. I started receiving messages from people who had seen my work online, stories of how my art had helped them navigate their own storms. These connections, born out of shared pain and resilience, reaffirmed that while betrayal had scarred me, it had also enabled me to touch lives in ways I had never imagined. Now, as I write these words, I feel a deep sense of gratitude for every moment, the joyous and the sorrowful that has shaped my journey. I know that the scars will remain, etched into the very fabric of my being, but they no longer serve as reminders of defeat. Instead, they are a testament to my strength, my capacity for growth, and the undeniable truth that even in the face of overwhelming betrayal, the human spirit can emerge transformed. I share my story with you all here on Reddit, not as a tale of woe, but as an invitation to believe in the possibility of renewal. For anyone who has experienced the sting of betrayal, know that your pain is valid, your journey is uniquely your own, and beyond the darkness lies a horizon filled with potential. The road to healing is neither smooth nor straightforward, but every step taken, every tear shed, and every moment of vulnerability is a brick in the foundation of a new beginning. There are still days when the past creeps in uninvited, when a familiar scent or a shared melody transports me back to those agonizing moments. But each of those instances now serves as a gentle reminder, a reminder that I survived, that I continue to live, and that every challenge I face is an opportunity to rebuild a life that is richer, more compassionate, and more authentic than before. I am not defined by my scars, but by the journey I undertake every single day, a journey that is filled with the messy, beautiful reality of being human. And so, with cautious optimism and a heart that's still learning to trust, I continue forward. My story is far from over, and I look forward to the unwritten chapters that await. In sharing this with you, I hope to spark a conversation, to remind someone out there that even when the weight of betrayal feels unbearable, there is always a path to healing, a path lit by the resilience that resides within each of us. I started to immerse myself in the community around me, realizing that sometimes healing comes not only from introspection, but also from helping others navigate their own darkness. I volunteered at a local shelter and began mentoring young artists at a community center, sharing not only my skills in graphic design, but also the hard-won lessons of my personal journey. Every conversation, every shared tear and smile, deepened my understanding that while betrayal had scarred me, it also gifted me empathy and resilience that I could offer to others. I found that by embracing vulnerability and reaching out, I was not only mending my own heart, but also mending the broken pieces of those around me. It was during one of these community gatherings that I met Brandon, a talented musician struggling with his own demons after a painful breakup. Brandon's raw lyrics and soulful melodies struck a chord deep within me, reminding me of nights spent scribbling poetry in my journal, searching for meaning in the echoes of a shattered past. Over late-night coffee sessions and impromptu jam sessions in cramped studios, we forged a friendship based on mutual respect and shared pain. Brandon, with his gentle wisdom and unapologetic honesty, became a mirror reflecting the strength I was beginning to see in myself. His music, laden with the complexities of heartache and hope, inspired me to experiment with new styles in my art, blending digital techniques with the spontaneity of hand-drawn sketches to capture the transient beauty of life. As the months turned to years, the tapestry of my life continued to evolve. I began hosting small art shows and poetry nights, inviting people from all walks of life to share their stories in a safe space of mutual understanding. Each event was a celebration of our collective struggles and triumphs, a reminder that while each of us bore scars, we also carried the seeds of recovery and transformation. These gatherings became a beacon of light in a community that often felt overshadowed by the harsh realities of everyday life. I remember one particular evening, the venue awash with the golden hues of a setting sun, when a young woman named Emily took the stage. Her voice, soft yet determined, recounted a tale of personal betrayal and renewal that resonated with every soul present. In that moment, as we sat together in shared silence and understanding, I recognized that our pain was not a burden to bear alone, but a bridge that connected us all. Despite the progress I made, there were still nights when the ghost of betrayal crept back in. During those moments, I would revisit old memories, the way Michael's smile used to light up our shared moments, the sound of Ashley's laughter echoing in crowded rooms. The memories were bittersweet, a reminder of what I had lost and a symbol of what I had overcome. I often wondered if forgiveness was a destination or a journey, a question that lingered in my thoughts like an unfinished melody. On one particularly stormy night, when the rain battered the windows and the wind howled like the lament of a wounded soul, I sat by my desk and began writing a letter to the past, a letter that acknowledged the pain, thanked it for the lessons, and finally allowed me to let go. I never sent that letter, but in the act of writing, I found a measure of release and closure that no conversation ever could. In the ensuing years, my career flourished in ways I had never imagined. My work began to gain recognition, and invitations to collaborate on larger projects poured in. I was commissioned by local businesses, featured in art galleries, and even had a few pieces displayed in a renowned New York City exhibition. Each milestone, however, was tempered by the quiet awareness of the sacrifices it took to reach that point. I often found myself revisiting the memories of betrayal, not with regret, but with a sober acknowledgement of how far I had come. Michael and Ashley faded into the background of my mind, not as painful reminders, but as chapters that had propelled me toward self-realization and artistic evolution. There were times when the weight of the past felt unbearable, and I would retreat to long drives on empty highways, the hum of the engine mingling with the rhythm of my thoughts. On these drives, I would listen to classic rock anthems and the melancholic strains of folk ballads, songs that carried the spirit of every broken heart that had ever dared to love deeply. The open road became a metaphor for the journey of life, a vast, uncharted expanse filled with both peril and promise. In the solitude of those moments, I felt an odd mix of loneliness and liberation, knowing that each mile traveled was a testament to the resilience that had carried me through the darkest of times. As the seasons changed, so did my relationships. I learned to forge bonds that were built on mutual understanding rather than blind trust. I discovered that genuine connection isn't about perfection. It's about embracing each other's flaws and growing together despite them. I began dating again, tentatively stepping into the realm of romance with a cautious optimism. I met Laura at a mutual friends gathering, a woman with a quiet strength and an empathetic smile that seemed to understand the unspoken scars beneath my guarded exterior. Our courtship was gentle and deliberate, a gradual unfolding of trust that blossomed in small, meaningful moments. With Laura, I found that love could be patient and kind, a balm that soothed the raw edges of my past, rather than igniting old wounds. Yet, even as I embraced the possibility of a new love, the echoes of betrayal remained a silent undertone in my life. There were moments when I would catch myself scrutinizing every gesture and every word, searching for hidden meanings or signs of insincerity. The remnants of Michael and Ashley's treachery had taught me that trust, once shattered, was a delicate thing to rebuild. But Laura's presence was a reminder that not everyone carried the weight of deceit, that there were hearts capable of tenderness and truth. Slowly, through countless shared smiles, whispered confidences, and the comfort of mutual understanding, I began to allow myself to trust again, carefully, hesitantly, but with a hope that defied the scars of the past. The healing process was not linear, and setbacks would sometimes hit like unexpected storms. There were days when the pain surged back with an intensity that left me breathless and disoriented, when the laughter of friends and the beauty of a sunset seemed overshadowed by an internal ache. In those moments, I would return to my journal, scribbling down my emotions as if trying to capture lightning in a bottle. Each page was a mosaic of raw emotion, rage, sorrow, hope, and the tentative spark of forgiveness. I began to understand that my journey was not solely about moving on, but about integrating every part of my experience into the person I was becoming. In time, I even reconnected with Michael in a quiet, unassuming cafe on a rainy afternoon. The conversation was measured, filled with pauses and the weight of unspoken regrets. Michael admitted that the choices he had made were driven by his own fears and insecurities, and while nothing could erase the past, he expressed a sincere desire to understand and perhaps one day find a semblance of redemption. It wasn't a meeting of absolution, but rather a mutual acknowledgement that our lives had diverged in ways that neither of us could fully control. That encounter, as painful as it was, allowed me to see that even the deepest wounds might someday serve as the soil for new beginnings. Looking back on that tumultuous period, I realized that the betrayal was not an isolated incident of human cruelty, but a catalyst that forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities and limitations. It pushed me to explore the depths of my soul and to question every belief I had held dear about trust, loyalty, and love. The journey was arduous, and there were moments when the darkness threatened to swallow me whole. Yet, each trial left behind a residue of strength, an indelible mark that testified to my capacity to endure and ultimately transcend the pain. My art became a living archive of that transformation. Every brushstroke, every digital creation was imbued with the emotional truth of my experience. The public began to take notice, not just of the technical skill, but of the raw, unfiltered narrative that each piece conveyed. Critics, once indifferent, now saw in my work the echoes of a man who had weathered betrayal and emerged with a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. In gallery reviews and online discussions, my story resonated with countless others who saw reflections of their own struggles and triumphs in my art. It was a bittersweet validation, a reminder that while betrayal might leave scars, it also leaves behind the possibility of rebirth. I continued to pour myself into every new project with a fervor that surprised even me. There was a particular series of illustrations I worked on, titled Fragments of Trust, which visually chronicled the tumultuous journey from innocence through betrayal to eventual self-acceptance. Each illustration was a layered composition of symbolism, a shattered mirror reflecting fractured faces, intertwined with images of nature slowly reclaiming the ruins of a once beautiful structure. The series was met with critical acclaim, and soon it was featured in a well-known art magazine that celebrated emerging voices in the creative world. With every accolade and every new opportunity, I felt a mix of gratitude and responsibility, a drive to honor not only my own story but also the shared human experience of love, loss, and the courage to start over. The personal evolution I underwent also had ripple effects in my social circles. Friends who had once been mere acquaintances now became steadfast allies, each with their own narratives of pain and redemption. Our gatherings transformed from casual meetups into deeply reflective sessions where we openly discussed our vulnerabilities, our mistakes, and our hopes for the future. These sessions often stretched late into the night, filled with laughter that was as much a release as it was a celebration of our collective survival. We began to see that in our shared stories of betrayal and healing, there lay a profound solidarity, a recognition that our scars, though painful, were also emblems of our strength and capacity to love despite the risks. In the quiet moments of reflection, as I stood at the threshold of a new day, I often thought about the paradox of betrayal. It had been the most harrowing experience of my life, yet it had also been the crucible in which I discovered the resilient core of my being. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt had contributed to the mosaic of my identity, a tapestry of broken pieces slowly pieced back together with threads of hope, perseverance, and an unyielding desire to live fully. I learned that the journey of healing is perpetual, a series of cycles where pain is met with compassion, despair with determination, and betrayal with a profound, if cautious, capacity to love again. Now, as I sit in the soft glow of early morning light, the scars of my past are still there, etched into my skin and soul like ancient runes. Yet, they no longer dictate the contours of my future. They are merely part of the story I carry with me, a story that continues to unfold with every breath, every heartbeat. The betrayal, with all its bitterness and sorrow, has given way to a deeper understanding of life's impermanence and the beauty that emerges from even the most shattered fragments. I am not the man I once was. I am a mosaic of every heartbreak, every triumph, a testament to the transformative power of resilience. In sharing this ongoing journey with you, I hope to offer not only a glimpse into my personal narrative, but also a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there lies the possibility of renewal. The road to healing is long and unpredictable, but it is paved with small, triumphant victories. The decision to get out of bed on a rainy day, the courage to speak your truth, the determination to trust again, even if only a little. I invite you to see your own struggles as the raw material from which you can build a future filled with hope, creativity, and a richer understanding of who you are. So here I am, still learning, still growing, still vulnerable in a world that is as capable of beauty as it is of pain. I remain committed to living authentically, to embracing the full spectrum of human experience, and to sharing my journey, in the hope that it might light the way for someone else battling their own demons. The scars will always be a part of me, but they no longer serve as shackles. They are badges of honor, reminders of a past that forged a future built on truth, art, and the indomitable spirit of survival. And as I continue to navigate the twists and turns of this unpredictable life, I carry with me the lessons of betrayal, that every ending is merely a prelude to a new beginning, that forgiveness is a journey of its own, and that even in the midst of overwhelming loss, the human heart can find the strength to love again. My story is far from finished. It is a living, breathing testament to the beauty of imperfection and the endless possibility of reinvention. Every day, with every sunrise, I take another step forward, confident that the future holds not just healing, but a vibrant, unexpected joy waiting to be discovered. In the end, I want to leave you with this thought. Our wounds do not define us, but how we choose to heal can illuminate the path to a life that is richer, deeper, and more connected than we ever imagined. I am Jake, a survivor of betrayal, an artist of my own destiny, and a believer in the transformative power of hope. May our shared journeys remind us all that even in the midst of profound pain, there lies an unquenchable spark, the promise of a new dawn, a new chapter, and a future where every scar is a symbol of the strength that helped us endure. In the years that followed, the journey of self-discovery took on layers I never thought possible. I began to see my life as a mosaic of moments, each one a fragile piece of a larger picture that was slowly coming into focus. I moved into a modest apartment in a lively neighborhood in Philadelphia, a city that pulsed with a raw, artistic energy and was filled with people who, like me, were trying to rebuild after their own falls. The city became both a canvas and a sanctuary, where I could paint over old memories with new, vivid colors. I dedicated my mornings to long walks along the cobblestone streets, where the chatter of local vendors and the distant hum of conversations filled the air. In these moments of quiet solitude, I learned to savor the small details, The way the early sunlight cast elongated shadows on brick walls, the scent of fresh bread wafting from a nearby bakery, and the spontaneous laughter of strangers sharing a moment of joy. Each step was a small defiance against the bitterness of the past, a silent promise that I would reclaim the beauty of living. At work, I continued to pour my heart into my designs, using every project as an opportunity to explore the themes of loss, hope, and rebirth. I experimented with bold contrasts, harsh black lines meeting bursts of vibrant colors, to mirror the internal conflict between darkness and light that had defined so much of my experience. My portfolio, once a collection of commercial pieces, had transformed into a series of narrative artworks that told the story of a man who had been betrayed, broken, and yet gradually rebuilt himself with every breath. The response from clients and gallery visitors was overwhelming. People would stand silently before my work, their eyes reflecting the depths of their own hidden sorrows and unspoken dreams. In those silent exchanges, I found a kinship that transcended words. One autumn afternoon, while setting up an exhibit in a local gallery, I encountered a woman named Olivia. She was an independent curator with a discerning eye for authenticity, and her interest in my work went far beyond the aesthetics. Over cups of steaming coffee in a nearby bistro, we talked for hours about art, love, and the inevitable cycles of pain and recovery. Olivia shared with me her own story, a tale of personal loss and quiet triumph that resonated deeply with my own narrative. In her words, I saw a reflection of the struggle to trust again, the courage to open one's heart after it had been so brutally closed off. Our conversations grew into a deep, unspoken understanding. Together, we explored the idea that art was not merely a reflection of life, but a transformative force capable of healing even the most wounded souls. Inspired by these exchanges, I began collaborating with a small collective of local artists and writers, forming a tight-knit community dedicated to exploring the raw and unfiltered experiences of life. We held weekly gatherings in an old warehouse turned creative space, where every session became a blend of storytelling, music, and art. It was in that environment that I met Marcus, a poet whose verses cut through the noise with the precision of a scalpel. Marcus had a way of capturing the in-between moments of existence. The quiet despair before dawn, the lingering hope that accompanied the first light, and weaving them into a tapestry of words that resonated with anyone who had ever felt lost. With Marcus and the others, I began to see that every person carried a story of resilience, and that our collective experiences could serve as both a mirror and a beacon for those still stumbling in the dark. Yet, the path to healing was never entirely free of setbacks. There were nights when the ghosts of betrayal would surge forward unbidden, invading my thoughts with painful clarity. I would lie awake, questioning every choice, every moment of vulnerability that had led me to trust again. In those solitary hours, the silence was both a friend and an enemy, a canvas upon which the darkest memories were projected. But gradually, I learned to transform those moments into opportunities for reflection. I began writing again, not just in my journals, but in letters that I never sent. Letters to Michael, to Ashley, and to the version of myself that once believed in an unblemished ideal of love. These unsent words became a cathartic ritual, a way of releasing the heavy burden of regret and forging a new narrative out of the ruins of the old. As I moved further along this winding road, I discovered that forgiveness was not a single act, but a series of small, deliberate choices. One chilly evening, after a long day of sketching in the park, I found myself walking past an old bridge where I had once met Michael. The sight of it stirred a maelstrom of emotions, and for a moment, I considered whether I was ready to let go completely. In that instant, I realized that forgiveness wasn't about erasing the past. It was about acknowledging it, understanding it, and then choosing to move forward with a heart that was no longer anchored in bitterness. I paused by the railing, watching the gentle flow of the river below, and felt a quiet resolve settle over me. I knew that I could not change what had happened, but I could choose to allow those experiences to shape me into a wiser, more compassionate person. In time, that decision opened the door to new relationships that were built on mutual respect and understanding. I met Ethan at an art workshop, a man whose rugged exterior belied a tender, introspective nature. Ethan had his own story of betrayal and redemption, and in our shared experiences, we found a comfort that was both unexpected and profound. With him, I began to explore the intricacies of rebuilding trust from the ground up, understanding that every relationship required a delicate balance of vulnerability and self-protection. Together, we learned to navigate the uncharted waters of intimacy, discovering that the willingness to risk heartache was inextricably linked to the possibility of genuine connection. Our friendship blossomed into something more profound over time, a partnership that was equal parts passion, understanding, and mutual healing. Ethan's steady presence reminded me that the capacity to love was not diminished by past wounds, but rather enriched by them. In his eyes, I saw the reflection of a man who had also been scarred by betrayal, yet who refused to let that pain define him. Our quiet evenings were spent in long conversations about dreams and disappointments, in which we shared our hopes for a future that was brighter than the shadows of our past. There were moments when the weight of our histories would seem too much to bear, yet together we found the strength to keep moving forward. As the seasons shifted and the years wove their intricate patterns into the fabric of my life, I realized that my art had become a chronicle of transformation, a visual diary of every setback and every small victory. I began to host community exhibits where people could not only view my work, but also share their own stories through interactive installations and spoken-word performances. These events, held in converted lofts and reclaimed industrial spaces, were vibrant celebrations of human resilience. They became a safe haven for anyone who had ever felt betrayed or broken, a place where vulnerability was met with empathy rather than judgment. I remember one particularly moving exhibit titled Reflections of Resilience, where visitors were invited to write down a personal memory of betrayal on a slip of paper, and then, in a symbolic act of letting go, to place it in a glass box. Over time, that box filled with hundreds of fragile confessions, each one a testament to pain endured and the strength to overcome. Standing before that mosaic of shared heartache, I felt an overwhelming sense of solidarity, a reminder that no matter how isolated one might feel in their suffering, there were countless others who understood the silent language of scars and survival. Through all of this, my inner dialogue continued to evolve. I began to see my past not as a series of irrevocable mistakes, but as stepping stones that had guided me to a deeper understanding of myself. I discovered that every act of betrayal, every moment of despair, was interwoven with the potential for rebirth. I learned that the human spirit, when nurtured with kindness and compassion, could transform even the most devastating experiences into sources of inspiration. This epiphany permeated my work, infusing each design, each brushstroke with an authenticity that resonated with a growing audience. Critics and fellow artists alike began to remark on the raw, unfiltered emotion that defined my creations, a testament to a man who had not only survived, but had chosen to thrive in spite of it all. There were times, too, when I found solace in nature, the quiet majesty of towering forests, the rhythmic crashing of ocean waves against rugged cliffs, and the endless expanse of a starlit sky. On solitary camping trips, I would set up a small tent under the vast canopy of the night, where the whisper of the wind and the gentle lullaby of nocturnal creatures created a symphony that soothed my troubled mind. In these moments, away from the hustle of the city and the constant reminders of human frailty, I rediscovered a profound connection with the natural world. The unyielding beauty of the wilderness served as a constant reminder that life, with all its unpredictability, was a force of renewal, a cycle of growth that continued even after the harshest of winters. One crisp morning, as I sat by a quiet lake reflecting on the journey that had brought me to this point, I felt a stirring of gratitude for every twist and turn along the way. The scars of betrayal, once a source of constant pain, had slowly transformed into emblems of my resilience. They were a visual record of battles fought and inner demons conquered, a reminder that the process of healing was as important as the destination. I made a vow to myself in that serene moment, to honor my past not by clinging to it, but by using it as the foundation upon which I would build a future filled with creativity, compassion, and unwavering hope. That promise became the guiding light for every new endeavor I pursued. I began to mentor younger artists, encouraging them to explore their own vulnerabilities and to channel their personal experiences into creative expression. I shared with them the belief that every brushstroke of pain could eventually yield a masterpiece of transformation. In our late-night sessions, as we debated techniques and shared our dreams, I saw in their eyes the spark of a resilience that mirrored my own. A fierce determination to overcome, to love, and to create despite the odds. Over time, the conversations I had, whether with old friends, new acquaintances, or even complete strangers, began to form a tapestry of shared human experience. I found that when people opened up about their own betrayals and heartbreaks, the room filled with an unspoken understanding that transcended the boundaries of age, background, or circumstance. Each story, no matter how painful, became a thread that connected us all in a collective narrative of survival and hope. In those moments, I realized that our vulnerability was not a sign of weakness, but a courageous affirmation of our willingness to live authentically, even when it meant exposing the tender parts of our hearts. As I reflect on this ongoing journey, I acknowledge that the scars of betrayal will likely remain with me forever. Yet I have learned to see them not as marks of defeat, but as badges of honor, trophies earned in the battle for self-discovery and personal growth. They tell the story of a man who was once devastated by the actions of those he trusted, but who refused to allow that devastation to dictate the course of his life. Instead, I chose to let each scar guide me, to remind me of my capacity for empathy, and to inspire me to create art that resonates with the universal themes of love, loss, and redemption. Every day as I sit down to work on a new project or take a quiet walk through the city streets, I carry with me the weight of all that I have experienced. I remember the nights spent alone in a cold apartment, the long, painful silences that stretched out like an endless road, and the moments of quiet despair when it seemed like the pain would never end. But I also remember the first time I dared to smile again, the tender words of encouragement from a friend, and the unexpected beauty that emerged from the darkness. These memories, both bitter and sweet, have become the foundation upon which I now stand, a man who has been betrayed, yet has chosen to embrace life with open arms. I share this story not as a cautionary tale, but as a beacon of hope. To anyone reading these words who feels trapped in the shadows of betrayal and loss, know that there is a path forward, a path illuminated by the light of resilience and the promise of new beginnings. The journey may be long and fraught with setbacks, but every step, every tear, and every moment of despair is an integral part of the transformation that leads to a richer, more authentic life. As the sun sets over the horizon and casts a warm, golden glow over the city, I am reminded that every ending is in fact the precursor to a new chapter. My story, with all its twists and turns, is far from over. It continues to unfold in unpredictable ways, a narrative that evolves with each passing day, each shared experience, and each moment of courage. I am still learning, still growing, and still believing that even the deepest wounds can give birth to something beautiful. So, I invite you to join me in this journey, whether through art, through honest conversation, or simply by taking a quiet moment to reflect on your own path. Let us celebrate the strength that comes from vulnerability and honor the scars that remind us of our capacity to overcome. In our collective resilience, there is a promise that no matter how hard life may try to break us, there is always a way to rise again, to rebuild, and to find beauty in the broken pieces. I am Jake, a man transformed by betrayal, but defined by my refusal to let that betrayal dictate my future. With every sunrise, I choose hope over despair, creation over stagnation, and love over fear. And as I continue forward, I carry with me the belief that our scars, as painful as they may be, are the very marks of our strength, the silent testimonies of a life lived, a heart mended, and a spirit that refuses to be dimmed.